The battlefield was silent now,
Okay.
but it was not the silence of peace.
We have to go back
It was
for
the
the others.
silence of smoke,
We can't just
broken
leave them
weapons,
there.
and fallen bodies. The air
We must
smelled
be
of burnt
brave
metal
now,
and
little
ash,
one.
and the ground was dark
The
with
path
blood.
ahead is
The
uncertain.
war between humans and
We will
aliens
face
had
it
raged for
together.
days, but now only ruins remained. Among the ruins walked a single human soldier. His boots crunched on broken glass and shattered helmets. He was tired, his uniform torn, his body carrying small wounds from battle. But his eyes stayed sharp, scanning every shadow, every corner. War had taught him that silence often hid danger. He thought he was alone, the last survivor in this cursed place, but then faintly, he heard it, a sound weak and trembling. Like a whisper carried on the wind, he froze, his hand tightening around his weapon. The sound came again, soft, almost like a child's cry. The soldier followed the noise, each step careful. He passed burned-out tanks, broken towers, and scorched earth, and then, behind a fallen pillar of stone, he saw it. A figure tied to another standing pillar. Ropes cutting into small arms. It was not human. It was a child, an alien child. The child's skin glowed faintly blue under the smoke-filled sky. Its eyes, large and silver, looked at him with fear and hope. The child was thin, dirty and weak. Beside the pillar, written in harsh alien letters, was a message. The soldier could not read it, but someone had scratched the translation below in human tongue. "Take as you please." The words made his stomach twist. It was not just a prisoner, it was a punishment. A child left here for anyone to hurt, mock or destroy. He stepped closer. The child flinched. "Don't be afraid," the soldier whispered, though he knew the child might not understand. The child's lips moved, whispering something strange, and to his shock it spoke his name. The soldier froze, his heart pounding. How could this child know him? They had never met. The child's voice cracked. "Help me, please." He looked around, searching for others. Maybe this was a trap, maybe enemies waited. But the battlefield was still. The only movement was smoke drifting through the air. He reached for the ropes, cutting them with his knife. The child fell forward into his arms, too weak to stand. The pendant around the child's neck glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Before he could ask questions, alarms blared. A deep, metallic howl echoed through the ruins. The soldier's blood ran cold. Enemy scouts. They had returned to search the battlefield, and now they would find him with the child. He lifted the child into his arms, the pendant glowing brighter. The child whispered again, voice trembling. "They want me." The soldier felt his heart sink. This was no ordinary child. This was something far more dangerous, and now, because of one encounter, his life was about to change forever. He ran into the ruins, holding the child close behind him. The sound of machines grew louder. Enemy footsteps, alien hunters, searching, closing in. The soldier knew one thing. If he left the child, he could escape. But something inside him refused for reasons he could not explain. He chose to stay, he chose to protect. The smoke parted and he vanished into the broken city. The hunt had begun. The war was no longer about armies. It was about one human soldier and one lost child, together bound by fate. The night was quiet, but John's mind was not. He could not stop thinking about the child he had found in the forest. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and her small hands clutched his coat as if he was her only safety. She had no voice, but her silence spoke louder than any words. It told him one thing: she was in danger. John carried her back to his small cabin, hidden at the edge of the woods. He did not trust many people in the nearby town, and something about this child told him that if others saw her, trouble would come. The way her skin shimmered under the moonlight, almost like starlight, was not normal. She was not from here. The cabin was warm, lit by a small fire. John gave her a blanket, and for the first time she looked less afraid. Her eyes followed his every move as if studying him. When he set food in front of her, simple bread and soup, she hesitated. Then slowly she ate, like she had not seen food in days. John sat across from her, his arms folded, his eyes sharp. He wanted answers, but how could he ask when she could not speak? Instead, she lifted her hand, shaky and slow. Her finger touched the wooden table. She began to draw shapes in the dust. At first, John thought it was nothing, but then he saw it. Circles, stars, strange lines that looked like a map. She was not just a lost child. She was showing him where she came from. John leaned closer. The shapes made no sense to him, but the way she drew them, fast, desperate, like she needed him to understand. made his heart beat faster. Her tiny hand trembled, and then she looked at him, eyes wide begging, and John realized she wanted him to protect her, but from what? Suddenly, outside, a sound broke the silence, a low hum. Deep and metallic, John froze, his instincts sharp from years of surviving alone. He put a finger to his lips, telling the girl to stay quiet. She nodded, her glowing eyes wide with fear. He grabbed his old hunting rifle and stepped outside. The night was calm, but the air felt heavy. Above the trees, lights flickered, strange and moving in patterns no human aircraft could match. John narrowed his eyes. Something or someone was searching. He moved quietly, his boots silent on the soil. The lights grew brighter, sweeping across the trees, and then he saw them, figures tall and thin, moving with a strange, smooth grace. Their armor glistened like liquid metal, their faces hidden behind masks with glowing red lines. They carried weapons unlike anything John had ever seen, and they were scanning the forest. John's heart raced. They were looking for the child. He turned back to the cabin, his mind racing. If they found her, she would be gone. He did not know why he cared so much, but something inside him told him this child mattered, more than he could understand. When he entered the cabin again, the girl was waiting, her eyes full of fear, her hands clutching the blanket tight. She knew who was outside, and John knew too. The hum of the machines grew louder, closer. Shadows passed by the window. The girl pressed herself into the corner, her glowing eyes trembling. John placed the rifle on the table and crouched down. He whispered, "Don't be afraid, kid, I'll protect you." She blinked at him, her small hand reaching out to touch his arm. Her touch was warm, almost electric, like energy running through his skin. For a moment, John felt stronger, sharper, as if her presence gave him power. But there was no time to think. A sound like metal striking against wood shook the cabin. The door rattled, then a loud thud came again. The figures outside had found them. John grabbed the rifle and pointed it at the door. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The girl crouched low, her eyes never leaving him. The door burst open with a crash, splinters flying, and 3 armored figures stepped inside, their glowing weapons humming with deadly light. For a second they paused, scanning the room. Their masks turned toward John. One of them raised a hand. Speaking in a deep alien voice, the sound was harsh, filled with static. John didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. "Hand over the child." John stood firm, his rifle aimed. "I don't know what you are," he growled. "But you're not taking her." The alien tilted its head as if amused, then it stepped forward. Weapon raised, John pulled the trigger. The shot echoed, the bullet striking the alien's chest. But instead of falling, the creature barely staggered. Its armor absorbed most of the impact, glowing where the bullet struck. It turned back to John, almost mocking him. The girl suddenly cried out, not with her voice, but with light. Her body glowed brighter, her silver eyes burning like fire. The aliens froze, their masks turning to her. She raised her small hands, and the strange energy around her pulsed. The cabin shook, and the alien stumbled as if pushed by invisible force. John stared, stunned. The child was not just different, she had power. Real power, but using it drained her. She collapsed, the glow fading. John caught her in his arms, his heart pounding. The aliens recovered quickly. Stepping closer, John's mind raced. He could not fight them. Not with bullets, not with strength, but he had something else, his will. He threw the lantern from the table onto the ground. Flames erupted, fire spreading fast, the wooden cabin filled with smoke. The aliens stepped back, their vision blocked. John grabbed the child, lifted her in his arms, and ran through the back door into the dark forest. The night swallowed them. Behind him, the cabin burned, and the alien voices echoed in anger. But John did not stop. He ran deeper into the woods. The child pressed against his chest, her weak light guiding him. He knew one thing now. This was no ordinary child, and protecting her meant standing against something far bigger than he had ever faced. The hunt had begun, and John was no longer just a man in the woods. He was the protector of something that could change everything. The forest was alive with whispers. Branches cracked under John's boots as he ran, his lungs burning with every breath. The child clung to him, her small fingers locked around his shirt. Behind them, the sound of the alien hunters echoed. Metal steps, voices like broken machines, and the faint hum of their strange weapons. The fire from the cabin burned bright in the distance, lighting the night sky like a warning. There was no going back. John slowed only when his legs screamed for rest. He set the child down near a fallen tree, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dark. Her skin was pale and she looked weaker than before. The power she had used in the cabin had drained her. John crouched low, trying to catch his breath. His mind raced. He needed a plan. But how do you plan against something you don't understand? The girl reached out, touching his hand with trembling fingers. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, John felt like she was trying to speak, not with words, but with her thoughts. A sudden flash filled his mind. Images, burning ships, falling stars, screams of her people. Then her face, crying, alone, hunted. John pulled back with a sharp gasp. His head spinning, he stared at her, his voice rough. You can show me things." The girl nodded weakly. Her gift was not only power, but memory. And now John knew the truth. She was not just lost. She was the last of something before he could ask more. A sound cut through the night, a shrill whistle. Like metal tearing through the air, John grabbed the girl and rolled behind the tree. A blast of blue light struck where they had been sitting, the ground exploding in sparks. The hunters were close. John picked her up again and moved, weaving through trees and rocks. The forest was his home. He knew every path, every shadow, but these hunters moved like wolves, spreading wide, cutting him off. The hum of their weapons grew louder. The girl's glow made it harder to hide. John whispered sharply, "Kid, you gotta stop glowing." She squeezed her eyes shut, and slowly the light dimmed. Only her silver eyes remained bright in the darkness. John moved faster. At last he reached an old hunting trail, leading to a cave hidden deep in the hillside. He had found it years ago and used it to hide from storms. Now it was their only hope. He slipped inside, the walls cold and damp, the air thick with silence. He placed the girl against the stone and crouched at the entrance. Rifle ready? The hunters appeared minutes later, their red eyes glowing through the trees. They moved in silence, scanning the ground with strange devices. One of them paused, its head turning toward the cave. John's finger tightened on the trigger. His heart pounding, the creature stepped closer. John held his breath, then a roar echoed from the forest. Deep and thunderous, the alien hunters froze. From the shadows of the trees, something massive moved. Not human, not alien, something wild. John's eyes widened as he saw it. A beast, larger than any bear, covered in dark fur with glowing tusks. It charged, smashing through the trees. The hunters fired their weapons, beams of light cutting the night. But the beast roared again, slamming one of them into the ground. John didn't wait. He grabbed the girl and slipped deeper into the cave, the sounds of battle echoing outside. The cave twisted into darkness. John lit a small match, the flame trembling. The girl's eyes reflected the light. Calm now. But John's mind was racing. What kind of world had he stepped into? Aliens hunting children, beasts fighting machines, and him, just a man with a rifle, caught in the middle. They reached a deeper chamber of the cave. Here the air felt different. The stone walls shimmered faintly. Almost like glass, the girl placed her hand on the wall, and to John's shock it responded. The stone lit up with glowing lines, forming symbols he had never seen. She turned to him, her eyes wide. This place was not just a cave. It was something more. The wall shifted, revealing a hidden tunnel. The girl stepped inside. Pulling John with her, he hesitated, his rifle still in hand, but the hunters were outside, and this was their only way forward. The tunnel opened into a chamber unlike anything John had seen. Metal and stone mixed together, glowing softly. Machines long dead lay scattered, and at the center, a platform with strange markings. The girl walked to it, her small hands brushing the surface. The platform came alive, humming. A soft light rose around her, wrapping her in warmth. Her weakness faded. Her glow returned stronger. John stared in disbelief. This cave was not natural. It was a hidden refuge built long ago, and it belonged to her people. The girl turned back to him, her eyes filled with tears. She pointed at the symbols on the wall. John couldn't read them, but he understood the feeling. This was her home, or what was left of it. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind them. The hunters had followed. Their red eyes pierced the chamber. John raised his rifle, his jaw tight. "Kid, I don't know what this place is," he whispered. "But if it helps you, we'll fight for it." The girl stepped onto the platform, her glow spreading across the walls. The machines in the chamber flickered to life. Old weapons rose from the ground, turrets with strange energy cores. The hunters entered, their weapons ready. But this time John was not alone. The chamber itself came alive, energy beams shot from the walls, striking the hunters. Explosions shook the cave. Smoke filling the air, John fired his rifle. The sound loud in the chaos. The girl's glow guided the machines, her presence awakening power long asleep. The hunters fought back, their weapons tearing through the walls. One of them charged toward the platform, reaching for the child. John tackled it, his rifle useless now. They struggled, the alien strength overwhelming. Its mask hissed, red light glowing brighter. John grabbed a stone from the ground and smashed it against the mask. Cracks spread, and the creature let out a shriek. John pushed harder, his rage giving him strength. The mask shattered, and for the first time John saw its face. Gray skin, sharp teeth, eyes like burning coals. It hissed at him. But before it could strike, a beam of light from the wall cut through it. The alien fell, dead. John stumbled back, his chest heaving. He looked at the girl, her small figure glowing brighter than ever. The chamber pulsed with energy. The hunters retreated, dragging their wounded. For now, the child was safe. But John knew this was only the beginning. The girl was not just lost. She was the key to something far greater, and now, with blood on his hands and enemies at his door, John had taken the first step into a war he never asked for. The shadows in the forest were no longer just trees and beasts. They were the signs of something bigger. A storm coming, and John was at the center of it. The cave was quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted in the air, glowing faintly in the light of the machines. John leaned against the wall, his rifle heavy in his hands, his body shaking with exhaustion. The hunters were gone for now, but the silence was not peace, it was only a pause before the storm. The girl stood on the platform, her glow fading slowly. She looked at John, her silver eyes calm, almost sorrowful. He felt something inside his head again, a whisper not of words, but of feelings. She was thanking him. John swallowed hard, brushing sweat from his brow. "Don't thank me yet, kid," he muttered. "They'll be back." The platform hummed again. Symbols appeared on the walls, glowing brighter than before. John stepped closer, trying to make sense of them. They weren't human letters, but the pattern seemed alive. The girl touched one of the symbols, and suddenly John's mind was filled with images again. This time clearer, sharper. A great city floating among the stars. Towers of light, beings with silver eyes like hers. Then fire, ships burning, explosions tearing through the city. And the hunters, the same creatures chasing them now, marching through the ruins. John staggered back, gasping, his head throbbed. The girl had shown him her past. Her people had been destroyed, hunted to near extinction. And now she was the last spark of that fire. John clenched his fists. He had never asked for this. He was just a man living alone in the woods, running from his own ghosts. But fate had dragged him here. He looked at the child again, fragile, glowing, staring at him with silent trust. He couldn't walk away, not anymore. A rumble shook the cave, dust fell from the ceiling. The girl's glow flickered and fear filled her eyes. John grabbed his rifle, eyes narrowing. "They're not done," he whispered. He was right. Outside, the forest lit up with red beams. The hunters had returned, this time with more numbers. Dozens of glowing eyes moved through the trees. Their voices carried, harsh and broken. They were calling, not to each other, but to something else. The ground trembled again. Heavier this time, John's stomach turned. Something bigger was coming. The girl reached for his hand, gripping tight. She pulled him toward the back of the chamber. Another door opened, this one larger, carved into the stone like a hidden passage. John hesitated, but the hunters were almost inside. He followed, his heart pounding. The passage led deeper underground. The walls shimmered faintly. Guiding their way, John's steps echoed. And the girl's glow was the only light. They walked for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes at last. They entered another chamber, even larger here. Machines rested in silence, old and broken. But at the center was something different, a sphere, floating above the ground, pulsing faintly with blue light. The girl approached it slowly. Her hands trembled as she reached out. The sphere reacted instantly. Glowing brighter, symbols appeared all around. And the air hummed with power. John raised his rifle, though he didn't know what good it would do. "Careful," he whispered. But the girl pressed her hand against the sphere. In a flash, the chamber came alive. Images filled the air, not just in John's mind this time, but around them, stars, planets, galaxies spinning in light. John gasped, his eyes wide. This was no cave, it was a command center, a hidden sanctuary of her people. and the sphere was its heart. The girl turned to him, and suddenly, a voice filled the chamber, clear, soft, and unmistakable. It was hers for the first time. She spoke, not with her mouth, but through the sphere. "Protector," the voice said. Trembling but strong, John froze. Protector. That was what she called him. The sphere shifted, showing new images. The hunters, thousands of them, spreading across worlds, their armies marching, their weapons burning, and then Earth. John's chest tightened. The hunters were coming here not just for the girl, but for the whole planet. He felt cold all over. This was no longer about one child. This was about survival, human survival. The girl's glow dimmed. Her strength fading again, she fell to her knees, and John rushed to catch her. Her body was small, too fragile for the weight she carried. John held her close, anger burning inside him. "She's just a kid," he whispered, "but to them, she's the key." A sound echoed from behind. The hunters had found the passage. Their voices grew louder, closer. John gritted his teeth, pulling the girl to her feet. He scanned the chamber, searching for a way out. The sphere pulsed again, brighter this time. A doorway opened on the far side. Light spilling through, John didn't think. He carried the girl and ran. The doorway led them outside. Cold night air hit his face. They had emerged on the far side of the mountain, the forest stretching endlessly. John looked up at the stars, the weight of what he had seen pressing on him. The hunters were not just a threat to her. They were a threat to all of Earth, and he, a lone man with a rifle, had been pulled into the center of it. The girl stirred weakly, whispering in his mind again, "Protector." "You must fight." John closed his eyes. He had run from battles before, from wars that had broken him, but this time was different. This time someone needed him. This time the fight was not just his, it was humanity's. He tightened his grip on the rifle somewhere in the dark forest. The hunter's red eyes were moving closer. The war had already begun, and John, whether he liked it or not, was the first line of defense. The forest was alive with whispers. Branches groaned under the weight of the night wind, but the sound was drowned by the heavy steps that echoed behind John. The hunters were coming closer, their red eyes glowing like fireflies of death. John's breath misted in the cold air as he carried the child. Her glow faint but steady. Every step was a war between speed and silence. If he moved too fast, they would hear him. If he moved too slow, they would catch him. The girl stirred weakly in his arms, her silver eyes flickering open. Her thoughts brushed against his mind, fragile and soft. "Protector? Danger." John gave a grim smile. "Yeah, I noticed," he whispered. He lowered her gently behind a fallen log, brushing strands of silver hair from her face. "Stay here, don't move," he muttered. She clutched his wrist, her tiny hand shaking. Her eyes begged him not to leave. John forced a calm smile, though his chest burned with fear. "I'll be back," he promised. "But they'll have to go through me first." He crouched low. Rifle ready, through the trees, the red lights moved, steady, hunting, relentless. There were more of them now, not just scouts but soldiers, armored and armed with weapons that hummed with alien energy. John's hands trembled, but not from fear. This was the old feeling, the battlefield rising inside him again. He had run from war before, but his body had never forgotten how to fight. The weight of the rifle was familiar, the beat of his heart steadying into rhythm. The soldier in him was waking up. The first hunter stepped into the clearing, its tall frame bending unnaturally, armor glistening under the moonlight. It raised its weapon, scanning the shadows. John didn't breathe when the hunter moved closer. John squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. The sound tearing through the forest, the bullet slammed into the hunter's chest. Sparks flying, the alien stumbled back with a shriek. Before it could recover, John fired again, this time into its head. The creature fell, twitching, its red eyes fading into darkness. Silence held for only a second. Then the forest erupted. Dozens of hunters rushed forward, their voices rising in unholy roars. John ducked behind a tree, firing in controlled bursts. Every shot echoed. Every recoil hammered into his shoulder. But for each one he dropped, 3 more moved in closer. Their weapons fired back, beams of red energy slicing through trees, burning bark, filling the night with smoke. John gritted his teeth, rolling to another cover. He wasn't fighting to win, he was fighting to hold them back, to give the girl a chance to live. The log behind him shook as a beam struck it. Exploding into splinters, John dove forward, landing hard. The rifle slipping from his hands, a hunter leapt at him, its claws reaching out. John swung a rock with all his strength, smashing it into the creature's head. It staggered, screeching. John grabbed his knife and drove it into the hunter's throat. Twisting hard, hot black blood sprayed across his hands. The creature fell, choking. John ripped his knife free and grabbed the rifle again. Rolling to his feet, "Come on then!" he roared into the night, his voice carried, raw and furious. The hunters answered with a chorus of screams. The forest glowed red as they closed in behind him. The girl's glow flickered brighter. Her eyes widened as she saw him fighting. Her small hands trembling, she pressed them together, whispering something in a language older than Earth itself. The ground beneath her pulsed faintly, the alien technology buried deep responding to her call. But her strength was fading fast. The hunter's presence was draining her. Pressing her into silence, John fought like a man possessed. Every shot was fire, every movement was survival. The hunters had numbers, weapons, and strength. But John had something they didn't, a reason. He wasn't fighting for power or glory. He was fighting for her, for a child who had no one else. But even his fury couldn't change the truth. He was only one man, and he was running out of bullets. The hunters circled him, closing in, their red eyes shining with cruel victory. John's rifle clicked empty. He dropped it, drawing his knife again. His breath ragged, he raised the blade. Ready for the end, the hunters moved as one, weapons rising. And then the world exploded, light burst from behind John, a surge of silver energy tearing across the clearing. The hunters screamed as the wave struck them, their bodies convulsing, armor cracking, weapons shattering. John staggered, shielding his eyes. When the light faded, half the hunters lay smoking on the ground, their red eyes dark. John spun around. The girl was on her feet, her glow blazing brighter than ever before. Her silver eyes locked on the hunters with unshakable fury. She raised her small hand, and another wave of energy shot forward. The ground split, trees cracked, hunters screamed as they were thrown back. She had unleashed her power. John's mouth went dry. He had seen explosions, he had seen bombs, but this was something beyond human understanding. The child was no ordinary survivor. She was a weapon, a living storm wrapped in fragile skin. But the power was eating her alive. Her glow flickered violently, her body trembling, her knees giving out. John rushed forward, catching her before she fell. Her head rested against his chest, her breath shallow. Her voice echoed faintly in his mind. "Protect her. I cannot hold it. They will keep coming." John's jaw tightened. He looked at the forest, smoke rising, red eyes already flickering again in the distance. The hunters weren't done. If anything, this would only make them angrier. They would send more, they would send worse. John lifted her into his arms again. Holding her close, his eyes burned with new fire. He had promised to protect her, and now he understood what that meant. She was not just a child. She was the last hope of her people. The key to stopping the hunters if she fell. Not only her race, but humanity itself would be doomed. "Then let them come," John whispered, his voice low and sharp. "They'll have to kill me first." He turned and began moving again. Deeper into the forest, the girl weak against his chest. The night alive with danger. The hunters were regrouping, the ground trembling under their march. The war was far from over, but something had changed. John was no longer running, he was leading. And for the first time, the hunters would face not just a man, but a protector. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant growl of thunder in the mountains. The human stood guard at the edge of the ruined shelter, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The child slept inside, curled beneath a torn blanket, her chest rising and falling with the kind of peace he no longer remembered. But the human did not rest. He knew what hunted them now was not ordinary. The ones who came earlier were scouts, but scouts always carried signals, and signals always called more. As lightning split the sky, he thought about the strange path that had brought him here. He was once just another soldier, forgotten on some battlefield where humans were outnumbered. Now somehow, he was standing as the protector of a child who did not even belong to his world. Yet deep inside he knew he would not let her down. At dawn the child stirred, blinking her bright alien eyes. She rubbed them and looked at him with a soft voice. "Are you still here?" The human nodded, his rough features showing no weakness. "I told you, I don't leave behind those who need me." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it quickly faded into worry. "They will come again," she whispered. "They never stop. Not until everything is gone." The human crouched, meeting her gaze. Then they'll find someone waiting for them this time, he said, his voice calm but firm. The child tilted her head, almost confused. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for me? He did not answer right away. Instead, he looked past her to the ruins, to the broken world she had once called home. Finally, he said, because I know what it means to be left behind, and I swore no one else would feel that pain if I could help it. Later that morning, the sound of engines broke the fragile calm. The human grabbed his weapon and motioned for the child to hide. Through the mist came 3 armored crafts, their wings wide like predators in the air. They landed with a hiss, kicking up dust and fire from their thrusters. The human stayed low, his heart steady, his mind sharp. He counted the shadows emerging, 10 soldiers armed with energy rifles, their armor gleaming black under the pale sun. One of them, taller than the rest, shouted, "Human! You have no claim here. Hand over the child and you will live." The human stepped into view, his weapon lowered but his stance unbroken. "She stays with me," he said, his voice echoing across the ruins. "If you want her, you'll have to get through me first." The soldiers laughed, the sound metallic through their helmets. Their leader sneered, "Do you even know who you defy? We are the enforcers of the syndicate. Entire colonies bow when we arrive." But the human only smiled faintly. Though there was no joy in it, "I'm not a colony," he said. "I'm a man." The fight was brutal. Blasts tore through the air, rocks and walls shattering as energy bolts struck. The human moved with precision, every step calculated, every shot deliberate. He did not waste a bullet, and he did not miss. 2 fell quickly, their armor smoking, but the others pressed harder, circling him, forcing him back. The human ducked into the ruins, drawing them into close combat where their rifles were clumsy. Inside the crumbled stone, he fought like a storm. His blade flashed when the gun ran dry. His fists struck with the force of survival. One soldier screamed as his visor cracked. Another fell as the human's knife found a weak spot in the armor. But pain ripped through the human's side as a blast grazed him. Searing his flesh, he staggered but refused to fall. His mind whispered, "Not yet. Not while she's watching." The child, hidden in the shadows, saw everything. Her small hands clenched tight as tears blurred her vision. She wanted to scream, to run to him, but fear locked her in place. She had seen others try to fight before. They always failed, but this human, he did not break. When at last the dust cleared, 6 soldiers lay silent, their armor shattered. The others retreated, dragging their wounded, their leader's voice shaking with fury. "This is not over, human. You have doomed yourself and the child." The human, bleeding and breathing hard, stood tall. He did not chase them. He simply turned back toward the shelter, toward the child. When she rushed to him, tears streaming, he placed a bloody hand gently on her shoulder. "It's all right," he whispered, though his strength was fading. "You're safe. For now." That night, the fire burned low as the human stitched his wound with trembling hands. The child watched in silence, then finally spoke. "They'll bring more. More than you can fight." The human nodded slowly. "Yes, they will. Then why keep going?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why not run? Why not leave me like the others did?" He looked at her with tired but unwavering eyes. "Because one encounter can change everything," he said. "And meeting you changed me. You gave me a reason to fight again." The child's eyes widened. For the first time she realized this human was not protecting her because of duty or orders. He was protecting her because he chose to, because he believed she mattered. But far above them in the black sea of stars, a massive fleet was already moving. The syndicate had heard of the humans' defiance, and they were not sending scouts this time. They were sending an army, and in the ruins below, the human slept at last, his weapon by his side, unaware of the storm that was coming. But even in his sleep, his hand rested near the child's, as if to say, no matter what came, she would not face it alone. The protector's burden was heavy, but he carried it willingly, because in a galaxy full of betrayal and fear, one human had decided that a lost child deserved hope, and hope was stronger than any weapon. The child woke to the trembling of the ground. At first she thought it was thunder again, but when she looked outside, her heart froze. The sky was filled with fire, not from storms, but from ships, dozens of them, black and sharp, cutting through the clouds like blades. The syndicate had come, not scouts this time, not enforcers in small numbers. This was a fleet, a whole army sent for one human and one child. Inside the ruins, the human stood still. He had seen battles. He had seen death, but never had he seen so many descend at once. His jaw clenched, his wounded side burned. Yet his spirit did not waver. The child ran to him, her small voice trembling. "They'll kill you, they'll kill us both. Please, we have to run." But the human shook his head slowly. "If we run, they'll only chase us. If we hide, they'll burn everything until they find us. Sometimes the only way to end the hunt is to stand." The fleet landed, shaking the earth. Hundreds of Syndicate soldiers poured out, their armor black as night, their weapons glowing with deadly light. They spread in perfect formation, surrounding the ruins like a tightening noose. At their center came a figure taller than the rest. The commander, his armor layered in silver and crimson, a mask covering his alien face, his voice boomed through speakers. "Deep and merciless, human. You have broken the laws of the Syndicate. You sheltered the child we marked for death. You fought against our enforcers. Now you stand alone before an army. Surrender the child, and I may grant you a quick end." The human stepped forward, his body battered, his weapon heavy in his hand, but his voice was steady. "You think I stand alone," he said. "But you're wrong. I stand with her, and with every soul you've crushed, every world you've burned, and I will not surrender." The commander laughed, cold and sharp. "Then you will die, human, and the galaxy will forget your name." But the human only smiled faintly. "Names are forgotten. Actions are not." The battle began. Energy blasts tore the ruins apart, the ground exploding with fire and smoke. The human moved like a shadow, darting between broken walls, his rifle answering with deadly precision. Every shot he fired found its mark. Every strike with his blade brought another soldier down. But there were too many. They swarmed from every side. Forcing him back step by step, blood ran down his arm. His breaths came heavy, but still he fought. Not for victory, not for glory, but for the child watching from the dark. Inside her hiding place, the child pressed her hands together, whispering words of her people, old words, ancient ones, prayers she thought had been forgotten, prayers for strength, for protection, for hope. And something stirred. The ruins around her seemed to hum, the ground vibrating with a strange energy. The air shimmered, faint blue light seeping from the cracked stones. The human, too busy fighting, did not notice, but the soldiers did. They hesitated, their eyes darting to the glowing ground. "What is this?" one shouted. The commander snarled, "Ignore it! Kill the human!" But the child stepped into the open, her small frame shaking, her eyes glowing faintly with the same blue light. The human saw her, and his heart dropped. "No." "Get back," he shouted, but it was too late. The soldiers froze, their weapons lowering slightly, whispers spread among them. "The mark, the child. She lives." The commander roared, "Silence! She is nothing but prey." But the human realized the truth. The child was not just a survivor. She was something greater, something the Syndicate feared. Perhaps a key, perhaps a symbol, perhaps more. The ground erupted with light, the ruins shaking as ancient power awakened. The child raised her hand, tears streaming down her face. "Stop," she whispered, but her voice carried like thunder. The soldiers staggered back, their armor sparking. The blue light wrapped around the human too, filling his tired body with new strength. He looked at her and for a moment saw not a frightened child, but the last spark of a lost people, a spark that refused to die. The commander, furious, charged forward, a massive blade in his hand glowing red with energy. He swung at the human with the force of a storm. The human blocked, steel clashing with energy, sparks flying in the night. The fight was brutal, every strike shaking the ruins. The commander's strength was overwhelming, his fury endless. But the human fought with something stronger, purpose. Each time he stumbled, he rose again, each wound only hardening his will. At last the commander struck him down. The human fell to one knee, blood dripping onto the stones. The commander raised his blade for the final blow. "Die, human, and let the galaxy forget you." But the child cried out, her voice splitting the sky. "No." The blue light surged, blasting outward in a wave that shook the ground. The commander was thrown back, his armor cracking, his mask shattering to reveal his monstrous face twisted in rage. The human, filled with the strange light, stood once more. He gripped his weapon with both hands, and with a roar he struck, his blade cutting through the commander's chest. Shattering his armor, the Syndicate leader fell, his body collapsing in sparks and smoke. The soldiers froze, their formation broken. They looked at the fallen commander, then at the glowing child. Fear spread through them. Faster than fire, and one by one they dropped their weapons and fled. The fleet that had come to destroy now retreated, their engines roaring as they vanished into the sky. Silence fell over the ruins, broken only by the ragged breathing of the human. He dropped his weapon, falling to his knees. The child ran to him, tears streaming down her glowing face. You did it," she whispered. But he shook his head faintly, a tired smile on his lips. "No, we did it." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his strength fading. "Remember this. They wanted you to be alone, but you are not." "Not anymore." The child hugged him tightly, her tears falling onto his bloodied armor. For the first time, she did not feel lost. For the first time, she felt safe, far above the galaxy watched. A human soldier had defied an empire, and in protecting one lost child, he had lit a fire that would spread far beyond the ruins of one world. For sometimes one encounter changes everything, and sometimes one protector is enough to remind the stars what hope truly means.